and how exciting it must be for you to be working with her. Well, I didn't think of it that way.
When Diane Baker walked onto the set of Marnie in 1963, she was just 25 and eager to work with the legendary Hitchcock. She had no idea she was stepping into Hollywood's darkest scandal. For decades, she watched silently as others told their versions of what happened. Now, at 86, she's finally revealing what happened during those dark days. The grooming, the private coaching sessions, and a shocking discovery in Tippi Hedren's dressing room that changed everything. Diane Baker was born on February 25, 1938, in Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital. Her mother, Dorothy Harrington, was only 19 and had acted in films like Animal Crackers and Monkey Business. Diane's birth came during a big Hollywood event. Dorothy went into labor at a premiere at Grauman's Chinese Theater. Some say Clark Gable helped her through the crowd to an ambulance. Just a few hours later, Diane was born. Dorothy was back working on a film set 2 weeks later, taking Diane with her. From the very start, Diane's life was surrounded by Hollywood. By the age of 3, she had already appeared in 2 films, though she was too young to remember. Her mother's connections meant Diane grew up meeting famous actors. She once sat on Humphrey Bogart's lap at a party when she was 5, but didn't even know who he was. In 1941, Diane's family moved to North Hollywood, right as World War II began. Their home was close to Republic Pictures, where cowboy movies were made. Diane loved sneaking onto the lot to watch scenes being filmed. One day, at just 9 years old, she was spotted by a director and got a small part in a Roy Rogers film. It wasn't a big role, but it made her want to act even more. In 1950, her family moved again, this time to Studio City. Their new house was across the street from CBS Studio Center. Diane, now 12, spent her afternoons watching actors come and go. One day, she met Lucille Ball, who was filming I Love, Lucy. Lucille invited Diane to watch a taping, and Diane was amazed. That moment made her dream of becoming an actress even stronger. When Diane turned 18, she decided to leave Hollywood and try her luck in New York City. She took a bus with just $200 and her dreams. New York was tough. Diane lived in a tiny apartment with 3 other girls and worked as a waitress to pay the bills. She often served famous Broadway stars, hoping one day she'd be like them. Even with the challenges, Diane worked hard. She took acting lessons with a strict coach who pushed her to her limits. She also trained in ballet, practicing until her feet hurt. Diane knew all this effort would help her become the actress she wanted to be. Her big break came by chance. One day, in 1958, while working as a waitress, she served Darryl Zanuck, the head of 20th Century Fox. He noticed her and asked if she had ever acted. Diane told him about her training, and he invited her to do a screen test. The test was a success, and just 2 days later, Diane signed a contract with the studio. The contract was exciting, but came with strict rules. Diane had to change her hair color, lose weight, and even fix her teeth. She also wasn't allowed to be seen in public with any man unless they were engaged or married. These rules were part of how studios controlled their stars back then. Still, Diane didn't let any of it stop her. Her career was just beginning, and she was ready for what came next. At just 21, Diane Baker's big journey into movies began with The Diary of Anne Frank. She played Margot Frank, Anne's older sister. It was her first movie, but she acted so well it didn't seem like it. She worked with famous actors and had to work hard for months. To look like Margot, who was malnourished, she lost 15 pounds. The director, George Stevens, first thought she could play Anne, but he decided Diane looked too mature for that role. The movie came out in March 1959, and it was a big success. It even got 8 Oscar nominations. Critics loved how real and emotional Diane's performance felt, even calling her a natural talent. Making the movie wasn't easy. The set looked exactly like the secret annex where the Frank family hid. Diane read over 50 books about the Holocaust and spent time learning at a special center. She worked long hours, and the director was so picky he made her do some scenes over 40 times. One scary scene where the Nazis stormed the annex felt real because the director didn't warn the actors. Diane was actually terrified, and it showed in her performance. Her hard work paid off, and she even got nominated for a Golden Globe for her very first movie. After this emotional movie, Diane did something totally different with Journey to the Center of the Earth. It was a big adventure film, and her role was more physical. She had to train for 6 weeks to learn how to climb rocks. There was even a scene with a collapsing ice bridge where she got hurt, but kept going. Another tough part was the underwater scenes. Diane didn't know how to swim, so she had to take lessons before filming. She spent hours in freezing water, but the result was worth it. When the movie came out in December 1959, people loved it. It made a lot of money, and Diane proved she could do more than just serious drama. That same year, she starred in The Best of Everything, a movie about women trying to succeed in New York. This time, Diane played a young woman with big dreams, but faced many challenges. She worked with Joan Crawford, a legendary actress who was known for being tough. In one scene, Crawford slapped Diane hard, but Diane stayed professional and kept going. The movie dealt with serious topics for the time, like relationships and pregnancy, which made it bold and relatable. When it came out, critics noticed how Diane could handle emotional roles so well. By the end of 1959, Diane was already being called a star. She was nominated for a Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer. She didn't win, but the nomination showed everyone how much talent she had. After that, offers poured in, and she even appeared on the cover of Life magazine. In just 1 year, Diane had gone from being unknown to one of Hollywood's most exciting new faces. In 1962, Diane made a bold move. She secretly met with executives from rival studios MGM and Paramount to explore other opportunities. The meeting, held at Chasen's restaurant in Los Angeles, was almost exposed when a Fox executive unexpectedly walked in. To avoid being caught, Diane hid in the restaurant's kitchen for over an hour. This risky act showed how determined she was to break free from her contract. By 1963, her dissatisfaction reached its peak. She refused to report to the set of The Prize, after being cast in a poorly received role opposite Paul Newman. This act of defiance led to a 2-week suspension without pay, costing her $5,000, a significant sum at the time, but it sent a clear message to the studio. The turning point came in 1964 when Diane's lawyer discovered a loophole in her contract. Fox had missed the deadline to renew her option, and this mistake allowed her to negotiate her release. For 72 hours, intense discussions took place, and in the early morning hours of August 20, 1964, Diane signed her release papers. She was finally free from Fox, ready to start a new chapter as an independent actress. Diane's career outside of Fox took her in exciting directions. She starred in 9 Hours to Rama, 1963, a challenging role that required her to film in India. During production, she contracted dysentery, losing 15 pounds in just 10 days. Despite her illness, she worked long hours in intense heat, earning praise from the director for her commitment. Her performance stood out, earning her a BAFTA nomination for Most Promising Newcomer. In The 300 Spartans, 1962, She played Ellis, a Spartan woman, and underwent months of physical training, including daily running and wrestling. One memorable scene required her to balance a water jug on her head while dancing, a task that took 37 takes to perfect. These roles weren't blockbuster hits, but proved her versatility and talent. Diane also made her mark in television. Her first appearance was in 1961 on Route 66, where her performance drew widespread attention and opened the door to more TV roles. In 1967, she starred in the pilot episode of The Invaders, a science fiction show where her portrayal of a small-town nurse caught in a terrifying situation was praised for its emotional depth. In 1970, she appeared in a 3-episode arc of Mission: Impossible, becoming the only guest star in the show's history to feature in a multi-episode storyline. This role earned her an Emmy nomination. Over the years, Diane continued to impress with guest appearances, including a standout role in Columbo as a struggling alcoholic, a performance that felt raw and authentic due to her preparation attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Before leaving Fox, Diane had starred in Tess of the Storm Country, 1960, a film that became a turning point in her career. The role wasn't originally hers. It came after another actress, Millie Perkins, turned it down. The production faced numerous challenges, including heavy rains that delayed filming and forced changes to key scenes. Despite these setbacks, Diane delivered a strong performance, and critics praised her chemistry with co-star Jack Ging. Though the film didn't do well at the box office, it was pivotal in helping her gain leverage in her contract negotiations with Fox. By the time Diane transitioned to freelance acting, she had already proven herself as a versatile and talented actress. Her decision to break free from the constraints of the studio system was bold and paved the way for greater independence, not just for her, but for other actors seeking more control over their careers. Diane Baker was cast in Marnie, 1964, in a way that felt like a mystery. She got the role without even reading the script. This might sound strange, but Alfred Hitchcock liked to work in his own unusual way. One day in 1963, Diane found herself sitting in the kitchen of Alfred Hitchcock and his wife Alma in Brentwood. They were eating peaches and talking about his new film. Diane, who was just 25 years old at the time, had already acted in movies like The Diary of Anne Frank and Journey to the Center of the Earth. When Hitchcock offered her the role, she didn't think twice. She didn't care what the role was. She just said yes because working with him was such a big deal. Later, she said, "Whatever it was, I was going to do it." Diane wasn't the only actor kept in the dark. The movie's lead, Tippi Hedren, also didn't know much about her role when she was cast. Hitchcock liked to surprise his actors. He believed that not knowing too much would make their performances feel more real. Even while filming, he didn't tell the cast much about the scenes they were going to shoot. This created a tense, exciting atmosphere on set that matched the suspense of the movie. In Marnie, Diane played Lil Menwaring, a character full of mystery. Lil was Sean Connery's sister-in-law in the story, but there was more to her than that. Diane made Lil's character feel complex and intriguing. Lil seemed to be interested in Sean Connery's character, Mark Rutland, but she also showed a strange fascination with Marnie. This created a triangle of emotions that kept things interesting. In one scene, Lil says, "I'm queer for liars," in a playful but meaningful way that hinted at deeper feelings. Some critics think Lil's character might even have had romantic feelings for Marnie. Alfred Hitchcock's approach to making Marnie was as unusual as the film itself. On the very first day of shooting, August 12, 1963, he arrived on set wearing a gorilla mask, shocking everyone. This strange start set the tone for his unique style. Hitchcock often whispered strange instructions to actors right before filming, keeping them off balance. One day, on September 3rd, he told Sean Connery to think of a purple cow just before an emotional scene with Tippi Hedren. This left Connery confused, but gave his performance a raw and unexpected quality. Hitchcock controlled every detail on set. He once demanded 47 takes of Diane Baker simply walking down a hallway on September 18th because he wanted her steps to match a rhythm he had imagined. Even the set's colors were carefully planned. Hitchcock used 12 shades of gray to subtly influence the audience's mood without them even noticing. This level of perfectionism made the cast and crew work incredibly long 16-hour days for weeks. Hitchcock also used shocking tactics to create authentic reactions. On October 7th, during a critical scene between Baker and Hedren, he suddenly released 200 live mice onto the set. The chaos and screams that followed were so real, they ended up in the final cut of the film. While these methods were controversial, they added to the film's tense and psychological atmosphere. But behind the scenes, the relationship between Hitchcock and Tippi Hedren was deeply troubling. Their collaboration had started well with The Birds in 1963, but things turned dark during Marnie. On July 15, 1964, Hedren discovered that Hitchcock had transformed her dressing room to look exactly like her bedroom at home, down to personal belongings. This invasion of privacy was just the beginning. Throughout filming, Hitchcock demanded private coaching sessions that often lasted late into the night. During these, he made explicit advances and shared inappropriate fantasies. On August 23rd, he allegedly tried to force himself on Hedren in his limousine. She firmly rejected him, but this led to an irreparable break in their working relationship. For the rest of the shoot, Hitchcock refused to speak to Hedren directly, using crew members to relay his instructions. His silent hostility made the set unbearable for her, and on September 12th, she suffered a nervous breakdown. Filming stopped for 3 days. Despite the toxic environment, Hedren was contractually obligated to finish the movie. The experience left her deeply scarred, and Hitchcock used his power to damage her career, effectively blacklisting her from major roles for years. Meanwhile, Diane Baker suspected that Hitchcock might be grooming her as his next leading lady. Early in filming, on June 3, 1964, Hitchcock invited her to a private dinner at Chasen's, a famous Beverly Hills restaurant. He asked her many personal questions and even sketched future film ideas for her on a napkin. Baker began noticing special treatment on set. She was given an oversized dressing room, more elaborate costumes than her role required, and regular invitations to watch daily footage with Hitchcock, privileges not extended to other cast members. However, this attention made Baker uneasy. On August 9th, Hitchcock cornered her on the soundstage and made inappropriate comments about her appearance. This encounter left her feeling conflicted about his intentions. As filming wrapped on October 17th, Baker was torn between excitement about potential stardom and fear of the cost of working closely with Hitchcock. Although he considered her for future projects, including an adaptation of Mary Rose, their professional relationship never developed further. Marnie itself was groundbreaking and controversial. It dealt with heavy topics like sexual repression, psychological trauma, and even marital rape. When the film was released on July 22, 1964, it faced backlash. The Production Code Administration initially rejected the script for its perverted content, forcing Hitchcock to make 18 changes, including softening the rape scene and toning down references to childhood trauma. Even after these edits, the film caused a stir. At one premiere, audiences walked out during the implied marital rape scene. In San Francisco, 37 women protested outside the theater with signs condemning the film for glorifying rape. On August 3rd, the National Organization for Women publicly criticized the movie for its harmful portrayal of female sexuality and male dominance. Critics were divided. Some, like Bosley Crowther of the New York Times, dismissed it as absurd and distasteful. Others, like Andrew Saris of The Village Voice, praised its psychological depth and subtle brilliance. Despite the mixed reviews, the film underperformed, earning only $7 million against a $3 million budget. Over time, though, Marnie gained new appreciation. By 2012, critics and directors were calling it one of the greatest films ever made. Diane Baker's career after Marnie was full of exciting moments. In 1965, she acted with Gregory Peck in a thriller called Mirage. This movie came just 1 year after her role in Hitchcock's Marnie and was an important step for her. The film was shot in black and white, which gave it a mysterious feel. Diane played Sheila, a character who kept everyone guessing about her intentions. To prepare, Diane spent 2 weeks learning from a real private investigator in New York City. During filming, a huge power blackout hit the northeastern U.S., and the crew had to use backup generators to finish their work. The director even added more shadowy scenes because of this, which made the film more suspenseful. When the movie came out, people loved Diane's performance, calling it smart and intriguing. She had great chemistry with Gregory Peck, and some even wanted them to star together again, but it didn't happen. That same year, Diane had another big role in the TV adaptation of Inherit the Wind. This story was about a teacher on trial for teaching evolution, based on a real case. Diane played Rachel Brown, a preacher's daughter caught between her love for the teacher and loyalty to her father. To prepare, Diane spent weeks in Tennessee, where the original trial happened, studying local history. The show was filmed in a real courthouse during a heat wave, and the intense atmosphere added to the drama. Diane's performance got her an Emmy nomination. Even though she didn't win, critics praised her as someone who could bring deep emotion to the screen. In 1967, Diane appeared in the finale of The Fugitive, which became one of the most watched TV episodes ever. She played Jean Carlisle, a character who helped Dr. Richard Kimball finally prove his innocence. The show's ending was a big secret, with actors signing agreements to stay quiet, and scripts were printed on special paper to avoid leaks. Diane worked closely with David Janssen, who played Kimball, to rehearse their scenes and build a believable connection. Viewers loved her performance, and she got thousands of fan letters after the show aired. In the 1980s, Diane took a risk and became a producer. Her first project was an independent film called Never Never Land, which she funded by mortgaging her house. She gained major success with the miniseries A Woman of Substance in 1984. This series was a massive project with filming across 3 continents and over 200 speaking roles. Diane made it happen by selling the series to 17 countries before filming even started. The show was a huge hit, earning her an Emmy nomination and launching the career of a young Liam Neeson. Diane continued producing meaningful projects. In 1987, she worked on Little Miss Perfect, a TV special about eating disorders in teenagers, a topic close to her heart because she had struggled with body image issues in her acting days. In 1989, she took on a huge challenge by producing a documentary about Hollywood's history called Hollywood: The Golden Years. This project involved restoring old footage and interviewing over 100 film industry veterans. When it aired in 1990, critics loved it and called it a beautiful tribute to Hollywood. Diane Baker's love life was as exciting as her career. In 1959, she dated Warren Beatty, who was about to become a big star. Diane had just started her acting career, and together they became the talk of Hollywood. They were seen at fancy places like Chasen's, where they met stars like Cary Grant. Their romance was short but intense. Diane later said Warren was too charming to resist, but he couldn't stay loyal. They broke up after just a few months. Years later, in 1977, Diane fell in love with Frank Langella while working on a play called Dracula. They had amazing chemistry, both on stage and off. For 3 years, they were one of Hollywood's most loved couples. They often worked together and shared their passion for acting. But their busy careers made it hard to stay together, and they broke up in 1980. Even after that, they stayed friends and worked together again in a movie later on. Diane never got married, and people always wondered why. She explained that marriage didn't feel right for her. She loved her freedom and wanted to focus on her career. In the 1960s and 70s, this was a bold choice because most actresses felt pressured to marry. Staying single let Diane take on roles she might have missed otherwise, like playing a seductive character in the movie Marnie. It also gave her the chance to work in places like Rome for months. But it wasn't easy. The press often criticized her, and some people in Hollywood treated her unfairly. Still, Diane never regretted her choice. She said living life her way made her happy. Balancing work and life wasn't easy for Diane. She acted in over 50 movies and countless TV shows. Her schedule was so packed that she barely saw her family. Once, after doing 3 movies in a row, she was hospitalized for exhaustion. Diane worked hard to find balance. She asked for personal days in her contracts, which wasn't common back then. She also brought her sister to visit her on set, and even gave her small roles in movies. In 1978, Diane took a year off to rest, spend time with family, and study photography in Paris. This break helped her come back stronger, and she did some of her best work after that. In her later years, Diane had a memorable role on the TV show House. She played Blythe House, the mother of Dr. Gregory House. Diane appeared in just 4 episodes between 2005 and 2012, but her character left a big impact. Her first episode showed her as a loving but clueless mom who didn't realize how bad things were between her son and his dad. In her final episode, she revealed a shocking family secret that changed everything for House. Fans loved her performance, and critics praised her for showing so much emotion in just a few scenes. Diane Baker started teaching at the Academy of Art University in 2004. At first, it was just a guest lecture, but soon it turned into a full-time job. She stayed there for over 15 years, helping young students learn about acting and filmmaking. It all began when she met the school's president, Elisa Stevens, at a film festival. Stevens liked how passionate Diane was about sharing her knowledge and offered her a job right away. From the start, Diane's teaching style was very different. In her first semester, she surprised her students by bringing a live tiger into the classroom. The tiger was there to teach them how to stay calm and focused under pressure. This wild idea worked, and more students signed up for her acting classes the next year. Diane also came up with fun challenges, like making her students create, film, and edit a short movie in just 1 day. Even though it was exhausting, these projects brought out the best in her students. One film, Insomnia in San Francisco, even won a Student Emmy in 2009. In 2011, Diane pushed things even further. She made her students stay in character for an entire week. They had to act like their characters all the time, even during other classes. This led to some crazy situations, like a student acting as Lady Macbeth bursting into a math class with a dramatic speech. Another student dressed as a gangster ended up scaring tourists at Fisherman's Wharf. While it sounded chaotic, most students loved it and said it made them much better actors. By 2008, Diane was promoted to lead two big departments, the School of Acting and the School of Motion Pictures and Television. She used her new role to make big changes. One of her boldest ideas was building a huge Hollywood simulator in 2012. It was a $12 million facility that looked and felt like a real movie studio. Students practiced working on sound stages, walking red carpets, and even dealing with fake paparazzi. Diane wanted them to feel ready for the real world of Hollywood. In 2015, she came up with something called the Rejection Resilience Program. Students faced fake rejections and tough critiques to prepare them for the challenges of acting careers. It was hard, but it worked. Many students said it made them stronger and better at handling setbacks. Diane also introduced a digital detox policy in 2018. Students had to give up their phones and laptops for a month. Instead, they worked face-to-face and focused on memorizing lines and collaborating the old-fashioned way. It wasn't easy, but it brought them closer and helped their performances improve. Diane's experience working with Alfred Hitchcock also inspired her teaching. She once recreated the Bates Motel set from Psycho to give students a hands-on way to learn. She also created surprise scenarios where students were thrown into unexpected emotional situations. In one case, a student thought her scene partner had a real heart attack and had to improvise. These moments pushed students to deliver raw and powerful performances. Diane believed in hard work and preparation. She told her students to spend 100 hours rehearsing for every hour they performed. To help with this, she built a 24/7 rehearsal space called the Baker Bunker. It became so popular that students had to line up to use it. In recent years, Diane shared her thoughts about Hollywood. She said many modern movies lack the depth of older films, which sparked some debates, but she also stayed hopeful. In 2020, she helped create Hollow Actor, a program where students could act alongside AI versions of Hollywood legends like Audrey Hepburn. She also started a project called the Global Narrative Initiative in 2019, which encouraged students to tell stories from cultures different from their own.